All right, so we're back at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College. I'm sitting with Eldred de Klerk to just have a review on yesterday's testimony from suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. I want to start off, though, Eldred, with your impressions. We've spoken a lot about body language. I know when Julius Mkhwanazi from Ekurhuleni was giving his testimony, we had a table full of water and a whole lot of tissue standing by. There's a lot to say about how they foreground and ground themselves in the testimony. What were your impressions?
Well, I think that what we saw was somebody who's a self-declared detective. He seems to have prepared his notes as if he's preparing for a court of law and to present a case. He was cogent, to my mind. He was coherent. There were even moments of levity where he joked with the commissioners that he's been known to speak too much and say too much. What we got to remember that yesterday was day 1 of 4. We were speaking to his notes. It was his affidavit, and he was being led through things that he felt comfortable with. And as we were saying, he was trying to foreground not just him as a person, his career. And we saw little bits of the fact that here was somebody who was serious about trying to make sure that we understand what happened to him and where he was coming from.
And so a lot of it was around history. As you say, we're only at day 1 of 4, and as we've seen the commission conduct its work before, they can become quite inquisitorial when it comes to the detail, which is what we need, the receipts that are needed to prove that he in fact was a beneficiary of bribes and a beneficiary of corruption, which he already said yesterday, it's all lies, damn lies. But when we go to his career, we think about some of the incidents that stretch back almost 16 years now.
Absolutely.
And that kicks off with the Zimbabwean rendition. And as he moves through the chapters, talking about the illegal rendition of Zimbabwean nationals, we talk about his suspension and dismissal under former Hawks head General Burning in Klemeza. We talk about fraudulent travel allegations, allegations around a relationship with Vusumuzi Katmatlala. This is a man who, over quite a sustained period, has, in his words, sustained an attack on his career and his reputation.
Absolutely, and throughout that processes, he had an opportunity to be vindicated. None of that has stuck to date. And it's clear that he once again feels that he's on the right side of those allegations. Devil's in the details. We still have to find the proof from the other side. Is he fighting for his career and reputation? I would assert yes. And as you rightfully said, it's been 16 years. He feels under the cusp. And the inquisitorial part is yet to come when the commissioners go from, we've now listened to you, now we have questions. And we know that the commission is very good at playing hangman. They will start basically drawing the little lines towards the noose that will eventually catch you.
And I think it's really interesting then. It gives an insight and an understanding into his attitude around this, and his attitude, which he's reiterated at several points, around what he thinks is almost a persecution led by the triumvirate of Mkhwanazi, Masemola, and Khumalo. Part of what he said yesterday was, do I look like a drug dealer to you? You know, I've never touched drugs. I've never worked with cartels. Bring the proof. And in each of the things that he was responding to, he kept, this was his common refrain. And this is where it gets real for the commission.
Absolutely, and he's widened the net, and we'll find out today, and the commission will be responsive to his appeals to have others be part of the conversation for the evidence around the restructuring, around the brief and his responsibility as the Deputy National Commissioner, the remit of that, what in fact was under his purview and what did he have authority to act on. All of that, he was trying to paint a picture of somebody who was trying to paint between the lines. And we will see whether that holds water over the next few days. And today, I think, will be particularly telling as to whether his demeanor, his calmness under fire, well, he hasn't been put under much pressure. His banter with the evidence leader and the commissioner will continue. Let's hope that he stays calm, even though he might be facing more and more continued and tougher questions going forward.
I mean, my prayer would be that he does get a little bit ruffled, because sometimes it's in those moments where you reveal a lot more perhaps than you intended to. And ultimately, this is about the pursuit for truth. So that's where I stand.
Well, but I think you can be candid without necessarily losing it, because what we really want, because we can pick it up in many different ways. So he needs to be candid, right? He can't hide from the truth, or he shouldn't look to hide from the truth. But he can do that in a way that we don't see him losing his dignity in the process or feeling humiliated like some of the witnesses done, not necessarily at the commission, but we've seen it elsewhere.
It was a series yesterday, and it gives us again an insight into how he's going to approach his evidence, responding to witness F's allegations around the Impala Gate, that he gifted, or that he was gifted Impala after discussions around that healthcare tender that Kat Madlanga secured in the city. He's denied that. Orchestrating the disbandment of the PKTT, also standing back from that, denying that, saying, this really wasn't his decision to make. None of the files essentially had judicially authorized warrants, etc., etc. So he was poking holes in all of the tenets around which,
Absolutely.
this commission
And there were two words that came to mind. Remember, we had the whole play on the word immediate, and that trended for a while. We had the notion that the National Commissioner was surprised by all of this. What we forget, and we may have to revisit, the testimony of the now suspended, the Minister on Special Leave rather than suspended. We need to keep our lane straight here. Because the Minister was also saying that part of the reason he asked the National Commissioner to act with haste, and use the word immediate, to act expeditiously towards executing a set of decisions that they had made in November, is because he didn't receive the reports that he was waiting to receive. He then took that decision, that fateful decision, to write that memo. There was a history and a context to that memo. We've now lost all of that amidst the foray of on whose behalf was he doing that, rather than saying this didn't just happen without context. And it's important for us to keep going back to say who said what, where and how, so we can keep stitching it together, because people are not just talking, they're talking because they're talking from a sense of conviction that they had some rational basis for making a decision. And now we see Sibiya arguing much the same.
I mean, it could be a case of, he's had these matrix-like abilities to be able to dodge off any either aspersion, charge, attack against him, or, he has been unfairly targeted, which is one of the things that we have been discussing as well. I mean, and that's his narrative. Because as I look at it, I've got an entire litany of things, and my page stretches on quite long, into allegations that are made against him that he's standing back against, and that's what the Commission is going to get into, including allegations of this 20 million rand quote-unquote spy machine from the Israelis, saying that the equipment was for detecting and surveillance services, combating municipal corruption, and that in fact on this one, which we've talked about before, he was cleared by the State Security Agency.
Absolutely, because you don't just acquire spyware, essentially, things that can intercept. It's an interception device. And it can listen to what you're saying, it can record what you're saying, and we need it, and it can block you from doing certain things. That actually has to go through the Inspector General of Intelligence. There's a process for the acquisition of it. It has to be declared, and there needs to be paperwork to support justification for it, and it needs to know who's got it, where it's going, and it needs particular controllers to be able to handle it. So if there was an investigation, and we believe there were, and it did clear him, is he the one who, in fact, is justified in feeling persecuted? He was also cleared, remember, by the public, was the public protector, of certain allegations. We would think that we understand those investigations were credible. We're not calling into question the credibility of the people who investigated him. So those are two major milestones that he's overcome. Doesn't mean he's maybe doesn't have little things that he have to account for. Nobody does things where things don't necessarily stick to us. But at the same time, I think the word you mentioned, he feels persecuted over 16 years. I think we see in a man trying to ensure that his legacy at least is a little bit above reproach, that he leaves with some of his reputation intact, and that he opted to come back into the police rather than step away. And let's hope he doesn't regret that decision in the next few days.
Well, we rely then, Eldred, and to our audience, Arabile, on the full set of facts that will be, because we know there are facts and alternative facts, or as some people are want to say, or we can be very selective in the facts that we choose. But as South Africans begin to hear from all of the players in all of this, I mean, where do we land? Where does it take us? And again, going back to the foundational principle, will we finally see a police service that is free of some of the hair-raising testimony around influence and corruption that we have already heard so far? The jury is out, as some want to say, over the next 4 days. We'll see how that all wraps up. All right, back to you in studio.